made was that it might require a corner clip. And I think we determined that we, probably because of the configuration of the right-of-way, we may have just enough room in there to put in a standard one-lane roundabout, which is all that we need, and that therefore it would only be the construction cost. And there are federal grants that are available for this, and that intersection is the intersection of two of our federal routes, Atherton Avenue and Alameda, so it would be eligible for federal funding. So I probably will work with Gary. I've been very successful in getting grants when residents help me write them.
So are you going to follow up in this, Duncan, as Councilmember McKeithen says, also on the amount, the cost of the study as well as the cost of the roundabout? See if we can get a grant that would cover all of it?
Right. The last federal grant we got included money for design, and basically I think in this particular case it would be a matter for the Transportation Committee to make a recommendation that it was a good idea. It's not the kind of thing that you need to do a neighborhood survey of or anything like that. This is an operational characteristic of our main arterials that's within the purview of the committee and the council to decide that it's a good idea to do that.
Could you put it on the agenda with the recommendation, not only that we approve it, but also some indication that you believe there's enough property without having to take any private property for one lane, and what the procedure would be so that we can have formal action on it at our next meeting?
Yes, I can do that, and I will look into what grants are available. Normally the grants do require either a 10 or 20% match, so that would need to be budgeted. So if we're talking $100,000 construction cost, we're probably also including like a design cost and construction management of 10 to 20,000. We'd be talking needing a budget of $10 or $20,000.
Okay, well,
I'm pretty well convinced that it's a valuable thing to consider now that at first I was kind of like, oh, I don't see how we'll ever get property to do it. And then we finally looked into the details of it and thought maybe we can fit it.
so can you put it on the next Transportation Committee agenda?
Yes, I can do that. I guess all I could say is I put in several roundabouts near my girlfriend's house, and I thought people were going to kill each other when they first put them in, and everybody's handling it just fine. It really improves matters.
I guess one concern or question I have would be pedestrian traffic at that intersection. They would have to be diverted somewhat. And I don't know how much pedestrian traffic there is there.
There is some pedestrian traffic, and there are provisions in the federal standards for how to handle pedestrians and how to handle bicycles. There is a lot of bicycle traffic on Alameda, and getting the bicycles through. The interesting thing is, I was looking at carrying a bicycle lane through. All of the recommendations are that the bicycles share the recommendations through the roundabout. Designated bike lanes, that they just become the vehicle going through the roundabout. The speeds in the roundabout are much lower than on the main road. And that's just what they say. The roundabouts off the road. That's something that we would look at in the design as what's the best way to do it.
I guess I am concerned that our resources, specifically you, Duncan, are at a point where we have to prioritize in this town. And I think, Gary, that's a wonderful presentation, and in an ideal world, that'd be a great place for it. But we've got so many serious problems in this town that I don't see that we have the resources to look at that right now and see if it's even feasible. Things we have lined up that absolutely have been on the table for a long time and need to be done. So that's my concern.
Well, that's something we need to address.
I mean, I think the answer to that would be to get a grant that would pay for us to have our consulting engineers here at the design. That would be how it happened.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Well, the next item on the agenda is to discuss and possible action to consider the results of the Holbrook Lane and 17th Avenue residence survey. Duncan, are you?
I'll start the presentation. We were given the direction to take the first first step in the traffic program on this. What's probably our 10th step in dealing with the issue in Silver Plain. We have been requested to look at two alternatives for keeping it as is. And we did a survey of the residents, and basically we have a survey here, the results of the survey, which shows that the majority of the people that live on the Holbrook portion are in favor, and that the county side is split basically 50-50, which means that you really have the majority of the people that live on the street are in favor of something like this being done. Now, I think a lot of people recall, I wasn't here at the time, but I think the chief was here back in the early 90s when something similar was attempted. I think one of the things I understand is that we didn't necessarily take the right approach when we tried it. And some of the county representatives are here. One of the things that they are asking is that the next step, if we want to pursue this, would be to have more of a public outreach to all of the Fair Oaks neighborhood to find out what everybody in the neighborhood thinks about it. If you close that street, you would say, well, where is the traffic going to go? I mean, what we're trying to do is keep them on Marsh Road. We've done a lot of things that we presented to you over the years to try to improve the traffic, keep people on Marsh Road, to get them farther down Middlefield so they don't back up onto Marsh Road. We've had some success, but it still happens from time to time that they back up there. There's a lot of people that still have the habit of going through, even if Marsh Road is not backed up. They go through there and they speed down Holbrook. Where would they go from there? We kind of hope some of the people that are in the habit would go back to Marsh, because none of the other roads are nearly as conducive to cut through as Holbrook is. If you come out Palmer, you're at the intersection of Fair Oaks Lane, and it's really hard to get out there. And if you go any farther, then you have to make a left turn to come back to Fair Oaks Lane.
Duncan, if we decided to close off Holbrook, did we have the authority to do that?
Yes, I believe we do. It's been done, and it's been done. I mean, I used to work in Belmont. We have about
So, I mean, we don't need to get county permission to do it, even though it might be a good idea to the public. So we don't need anybody else's permission to do it. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. And I would, if we were going to consider doing it, we would make it somehow so that the fire department had full access, the police department had access through there, bicycles and pedestrians had access through there. Just, the local residents would not have access through there. We don't have any ability to have resident-only access or anything like that. Cars would not be able to get through.
Okay. So, do we have any public comments on this?
Could you ask for counsel?
Yeah. Sorry.
Duncan, so you mean to say they couldn't use their own vehicles to get in and out? I mean, when you say they couldn't go through?
Right. The people in Atherton, on the Atherton side would have to come out to Middlefield, and the people on the county side would have to go out to Fair Oaks Avenue.
And that would include their guests?
Right.
That would include their guests, of course, because you would close it off right at the bottom of Holbrook, where the county line meets?
It would be closed right at the city limit. I'm pretty sure that's where we would propose.
And what about handling emergencies? Because it's not just a question of the traffic going on Holbrook in a routine manner, but we know that at least a couple times a year Marsh is closed for construction, for an accident, for repair of that fence. And theoretically, we are looking at the possibility of who knows what could happen with that channel in the wall. Every time you drive that road, you see where there are all those cracks as you're heading to Highway 101 on the right-hand side of the road, and they don't look to be getting any better. Every time I do it, I keep wondering what's happening to the wall, which at one point we thought was going to require $1 million worth of work to shore it up. If there's ever
$2 million.
$2 million. If there's ever a big project, which might not be so far in the future, especially with what Menlo Park is planning on doing around 101 with its two projects that it's planning, what do? We'd be then stuck with closed Holbrook, sending all the traffic elsewhere into that neighborhood?
Well, there would be two alternatives. I mean, normally when there's fire access through there, there is a gate. And, you know, in an emergency where we needed to use that road and didn't have an alternative, we could open the gate. But we also have a traffic control plan that's been put in place for major projects where we use several streets. We detour traffic down one street going one direction, down another street going the other direction. We've even worked out sort of an accommodation with Menlo Park to detour down Bay to Ringwood. They don't like it very much, but they have to do it. Like when we did the PG&E tree trim, we worked with them to detour that route. And what we do is, you know, if they're going south, they detour that way, and if they're going north, they detour the other way. We try to split the traffic up so that not one street takes the whole hit, but we move it multiple places. Right now, when we have an emergency, like, you know, in the middle of the night, somebody hits the fence and goes into the channel, and we have to close the road, we just detour to Holbrook until we can get the road open again, because we don't have time to set up a whole complicated traffic control plan. When that happens, it's likely we'll just open the gate and say, you know, we have to get people through.
But there are other streets, of course, if they want to get through to Middlefield.
Right, and you know, it's our intent. You know, our standard traffic plan for larger projects is to detour them to three or four different streets all at the same time, so that they can spread out.
That was the problem in the 90s. Now, when you say that in the 90s when this was attempted, it perhaps wasn't done in the most auspicious manner, what do you mean? You didn't use the word auspicious, that's mine.
Well, I know, you know, I wasn't here, but, you know, I've read some of the press. We got some pretty bad press about it, basically about elitist Atherton wanting to, you know, keep everybody out and things like that. The chief was here. I don't know, maybe if he has comment.
I thought that a lot of the problems were with the neighbors on the adjoining streets saying that it was going onto their street and they were taking the brunt of it. That's what I heard.
That's correct, Councilmember. And also, we didn't do as much outreach as this survey did, polling the neighbors on the other side in the county area. So this was done. This was actually a step above than what we did last time. I think just the residents voted it in, and we put a chain at the time. It was a chain in a planter box is what was used.
Have we heard anything from not just Atherton residents who are not on Holbrook, but on adjoining streets, as well as county residents who have not been surveyed as to this survey and the potential for closing Holbrook?
We haven't heard yet because we haven't done a more extensive public outreach. But I think, as opposed to the way it was done in the 90s, before anything would be planned, I would suggest that we should do more public outreach. I believe the county is willing to help us with that outreach.
Joe Coco with San Mateo County. Yeah, we would gladly jointly work together as far as an outreach and make sure that we're contacting the right people who may be impacted. And just to, I think to speak briefly about the importance of that is, you know, a few months back we did no through traffic on Holbrook and 17th. And on the county side, we did get a slew of emails from some pretty angry folks. And I think they were just caught off guard by it. And so they didn't, and they were fearful as to what the impact might be. And so, therefore, I think, yeah, we would gladly work with Atherton as far as additional outreach, and we feel that it's very important that the folks in the area, that a comprehensive effort be made so that they have the ability to voice their concerns with any such proposal.
When you say a slew of emails, what was the nature of the concern? Was it, apart from being caught off guard, were there any concerns having to do with actual transportation issues, namely backups on their streets, which were not 17th, or maneuvering out of 17th onto Marsh toward 101, or I mean, what were they saying?
Yeah, there was a myriad of things, but I think the primary concern was that these folks lived on other streets. They lived on 15th or San Benito, or they lived on Palmer, and maybe that wasn't the most direct route, but we did receive a lot of concern